Well, this is going to be a little bit of a different video for you guys because I've got two new pieces of hardware that came in yesterday, and I'm going to introduce you to them. Neither one of them go boom, but both of them are going to add a new dimension to the content that I can bring to you. The first one, and I'll give you a little bit of introduction first. If you'll remember, a few months ago, I was doing a video with the Henry 4570, and a gas check came off the back of one of those cast bullets, and it went through the display of my Caldwell chronograph. And so for the last few months, I've been using a borrowed chronograph. Well, yesterday in the mail, I got this guy, and it is a LabRadar. And if you're not familiar with LabRadar, this is actually a Doppler radar chronograph. And you set it next to you, I'll show you in just a second, but you set it next to the end of your rifle, to the muzzle of your rifle or your pistol, or you can even do it with a bow or a crossbow or a pellet gun with some accessories. And the firing of the rifle or pistol triggers the Doppler to run while the bullet goes down range. And so it's really a different kind of chronograph, and you don't have it downrange. You don't have to shoot through it, and it's not dependent on sunlight. And so let's get this guy taken apart. I'll give you a close look at what is in the box. And this is not an unboxing. I would do terrible at unboxing videos anyway. But I've already had this guy out and went through a really quick setup, and so there it is. This is what you see as the user, and that is the business end of the Doppler radar. And so this is the surface that emits the Doppler signal downrange. It goes downrange, hits the back of your bullet, sends back a signal in there. It analyzes the time delay and gives you a plus or minus 0.1% reading. And so it's very, very accurate. And it will give you up to five yardage velocities at different yardages. So you can get a muzzle velocity, you can get a 25, 50, 75, and 100 yard velocities as well. In fact, the distance downrange that this guy will actually record is dependent on the diameter of the bullet. And so a small bullet like a 223 is going to have a limited range of about maximum of 80 yards, whereas a 35 caliber bullet can have a range as far as 130 yards. And so we'll experiment with that once we get him out in the field. But gosh, what a great piece of hardware. And it just mounts to a tripod next to where you're shooting, just like this. There you have it. And so we would set up with a rifle, put the muzzle right by the end of the edge of within 6 inches or so, depending on how you have it set up, within 6 inches of the sensor right here, a trigger, and when you fire, the sound from the muzzle blast triggers the Doppler to turn on. And what I really liked about this guy was how easy it was to set up. And so let me just show you here. See if I can do this. We turn it on here, and it takes you through some menus. Ask several questions. I'm going to have to put my glasses on for this. But velocity units, that's what we want to check. And so I set it up for feet per second. You can do yards per second, miles per hour, meters per second. But I've got it there. Then we just scroll up or down arrow, distance units. I've got it set up for yards. And weight units, I've got it set up for grains. So you just use these two to change. This is just to set up your machine for the first time. Select value range. We are going to be first testing with a rifle. But if we needed to test, I hope you guys can see this. If we needed to test with or shoot a handgun, we actually have that option as well. And keep scrolling down. We can set the trajectory offset. That's how far you want your muzzle to be off to the side of the unit. And then you can set the distances that you want to record. I've got it set at 2 yards, which is muzzle. Oops. We got 25 yards, 50 yards, 75 yards, and 100 yards. So that's going to be our initial test. Projectile weight you put in there. I've got put in 200 grains because I'm going to be testing the 35 Remington 200 grain round nose bullets. The arm time, which is 120 seconds. That's how long it stays armed. And then you've got screensaver time, trigger source. You can either set it to pick up. You can either set it to pick up the Doppler, can pick up the bullet and start recording when the Doppler sees the projectile downrange, or you can just set it to trigger, and the 2 triggers are on either side, and you can see the screensavers going off at 10 seconds. But it's got a trigger on either side here, and so you can shoot either right or left. And trigger level, you can set the sensitivity. You know, if you're shooting at an indoor range, this is something I learned. If you're at an indoor range where there's a lot of noise, then you can set different sensitivity levels. But level 1 is the most sensitive. And then you've got your channel. If you have multiple LabRadars at the range at the same time, then you have to coordinate with the other users to pick a different channel so that you're not competing with one another. And then you got date, time, and factory reset, and there you go. So it's that easy to set up, and it can record. I'm not going to go into all the details. We'll talk a little bit about that when we get it to the range, but it can record, gosh, just almost an infinite number of shot strings. And gosh, what a great piece of hardware. And so anyway, can't wait to see this guy at the range. The LabRadar, pretty handsome unit. And the only negative that I could ever find had to do with the sighting arrangement, and this notch right here in the top of the top of the LabRadar. You have to actually sight downrange through that notch at the target you're shooting at to make sure that the LabRadar is pointed in the direction of the bullet flight. And so there's a few complaints about that, but I can guarantee, as a mechanical engineer guy, we'll work through that problem for sure. So there's the first item of hardware item of interest. Now the second one I've got right here, and it's almost, I almost hate to show it, but it's a turkey roaster. Now, why do I have a turkey roaster? Let me get to the punchline really quick. Hang on a minute. So the turkey roaster is there because I bought two blocks, two FBI-sized blocks of clear ballistic gel, and that turkey roaster is going to be needed when these guys get shot up. Then you have to cut them into small pieces, put them into the turkey roaster at a certain temperature, and it takes hours for it all to melt. And then I've got a mold over here. Then you pour the liquid gel into the mold and let it cool for 12 hours or so, and then you've got a new block. And Clear Ballistics says I can re-melt that block probably 8 or 10 times. And so we'll see how all of that works down the line. But anyway, I'm not going to give up on pumpkins, water-filled pumpkins, and watermelons when I can get them. But we are also, when we need to do some serious comparison, we're going to break out the Clear Ballistics gel. And these blocks are 18 inches long, 6x6 blocks. And it's the same size the FBI uses. So those are a couple of really neat additions to the Target Suite channel. And you're going to get to see those rolled in here over the next weeks. And by the way, if you haven't seen it already, I've launched a second video series, and it comes out on Friday, and it's called Gun Stuff for Newbies. And so if you know any shooters that are new to the sport and would benefit from a really low-level kind of an entry-level push into all things gun-related, terminology, safety, types of guns, things like that, please send them our way, because we hope to reach out to some of the 7 million new gun owners from 2020 and help them get started on the right foot in the shooting sports. So until then, I will see you guys and girls in the next video.